From a homeless man's rhymes to a condemned hotel-turned-movie set, Dolemite's journey to the screen was wilder than the film itself. Discover bizarre casting stories, an intoxicated director, and the infamous boom mic that became a cult legend. Fact 1. The character came from a drunk homeless man. The entire Dolemite character that would become a cultural phenomenon started with an unexpected source, a homeless man named Rico, who wandered into a record store in 1970. At the time, Rudy Ray Moore was working at Dolphins of Hollywood, a famous record shop in Los Angeles, trying to make ends meet while pursuing his dreams of entertainment success. Rico was what Moore described as an unwelcome regular, a drunk who would stumble in and tell outrageous, obscene stories in rhyming verse about an urban hero named Dolemite. Most people wanted Rico kicked out, but Moore saw something different. He recognized that these street tales, filled with colorful language and larger-than-life boasting, had a raw energy that audiences might love. Moore even paid Rico money for soup in exchange for performing these Dolemite stories right there on the record store floor, and customers responded with genuine excitement. The character Rico described was a fast-talking, crime-fighting, womanizing anti-hero who could handle any situation with style and swagger. Moore took these beer joint stories that had been passed down through black communities for decades and refined them into his own comedy act. By 1970, he recorded his first Dolemite album called Eat Out More Often, which became an underground sensation and eventually reached the top 25 on the Billboard 200 chart. What started as the ramblings of a homeless man transformed into a comedy empire, proving that inspiration can come from the most unlikely places. Without Rico's drunken storytelling in that record store, there would be no Dolemite movie, no blaxploitation classic, and Rudy Ray Moore might never have found his signature character. Fact 2. Moore financed it with his comedy album money. When Rudy Ray Moore decided he wanted to make a Dolemite movie in 1973, he quickly discovered that Hollywood had zero interest in backing his vision. Major studios and distributors turned him down repeatedly, telling him he was too old, too overweight, and too unknown to be an action star. The blaxploitation boom was already underway with films like Shaft and Superfly, but executives didn't see Moore fitting into that world. Instead of giving up, Moore made a decision that would either make him a legend or leave him completely broke. He took nearly all the money he had earned from his successful comedy albums and poured it into producing the film himself. Moore had released several X-rated party records that sold incredibly well in black communities across America, including titles like Eat Out More Often and This Pussy Belongs to Me, which were so explicit they had to be sold in brown paper wrapping. These albums had made Moore a genuine underground star and brought in solid income from his constant touring. He invested $100,000 of his own money into Dolemite, which was an enormous gamble considering that if the film failed, he would owe his record company for the rest of his life since he had taken advances against future royalties. Moore was literally betting everything he had built on this one project. He even warned his collaborators that they might not see much money up front because every dollar was going directly into making the movie. This do-it-yourself approach meant Moore had complete creative control, but also carried all the financial risk, making Dolemite one of the ultimate examples of an artist putting their money where their mouth was and refusing to let anyone tell them their dream was impossible. Fact 3. They cast the creeper off the street. One of the most memorable characters in Dolemite is the Creeper, also known as the Hamburger Pimp, a drug-addicted street hustler who becomes a key informant in the story. The script called for what they described as a penny hustler, someone who looked and acted like they genuinely lived on the streets. But Rudy Ray Moore and writer Jerry Jones couldn't find the right actor through Moore's connections or among Jones's acting class students. After filming had already begun and they still hadn't cast the role, Moore and Jones were driving down Western Avenue in Los Angeles when they spotted exactly what they were looking for. There on the street was a man named Vinus Rackstraw, who was actually hustling and had the exact look and energy they needed for the character. Jones immediately pulled the car over, got out, and walked up to Rackstraw to talk with him about appearing in the movie. Right there on the spot, they hired him to play the Creeper without any audition or screen test. What makes this casting choice even more interesting is that Rackstraw delivered what many consider one of the most convincing performances in the entire film, portraying a junkie so believably that viewers genuinely felt sympathy for the character. According to commentary from Jerry Jones, Rackstraw was an actual street hustler they pulled into the production, making him essentially a method actor who brought real-life experience to the role. He even got his own funky theme music that plays whenever the Creeper appears on screen, despite being a relatively minor character. Rackstraw never made another movie after Dolemite and passed away in 2007, but his authentic performance remains one of the film's most memorable elements and a testament to Moore's unconventional approach to filmmaking. Fact 4. The director was drunk and disinterested. D'Urville Martin was brought onto Dolemite as both the director and the villain Willie Green, but his behavior behind the camera became legendary for all the wrong reasons. Martin was a legitimate actor who had appeared in respected films like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and Rosemary's Baby, and screenwriter Jerry Jones recommended him for the project. However, according to Rudy Ray Moore's biographer Mark Jason Murray, Martin had serious problems during production that included his love of vodka, constant womanizing, and the fact that he didn't even have a driver's license, which created logistical nightmares. Martin quickly realized there was no real money in the ultra-low-budget production and completely checked out mentally, staying drunk throughout most of the filming. The director of photography, Nicholas von Sternberg, later revealed that Martin would show up to set so intoxicated and disinterested that he eventually just laid down on the floor in a semi-passed-out state and directed scenes from a reclining position. When actors would finish a take, Martin would barely look up and say things like, "I see no reason to do it again," before calling cut, showing his total lack of investment in making the scenes work properly. This explains why many shots in Dolemite look flat and poorly composed, with equipment visible in the frame and awkward staging throughout. Martin admitted he was only involved for the directing credit and felt the movie was beneath him as a legitimate actor. Despite his drunken indifference, or perhaps because of it, Dolemite ended up with a rough, chaotic energy that actually added to its cult appeal, and Martin never directed another film after this experience. Fact 5. They filmed in a condemned hotel. Drug Den. The Dunbar Hotel on Central Avenue in Los Angeles has an incredible history that makes its use in Dolemite even more fascinating. During the 1920s through the 1940s, the Dunbar was the crown jewel of Black Los Angeles, hosting celebrities like Billie Holiday, Lena Horne, Cab Calloway, and Langston Hughes when segregation prevented them from staying at white hotels. It was also the site of the NAACP's first West Coast convention and represented the height of African American culture and sophistication during the Central Avenue Jazz era. However, by the 1960s, the hotel had fallen into serious decline as black residents and businesses spread throughout the city. And by 1975, when Rudy Ray Moore needed a filming location, the Dunbar had become a complete wreck. The once elegant building was closed, covered in graffiti, filled with trash, and had become a haven for vagrants and drug users who were essentially squatting in the abandoned rooms and hallways. Moore struck a deal with the building's owners where he and his crew would clean out the vagrants, remove all the filth and debris, and make the place somewhat functional again in exchange for being able to use it as their primary soundstage for free. This arrangement gave Moore access to the hotel's vast lobbies, numerous rooms, and sprawling layout, which the production team then transformed with cheap decorations into everything the script required, including massage parlors, brothels, police stations, and hospitals. The irony of using this historically significant black cultural landmark, now reduced to a drug den, to film a blaxploitation movie about pimps and crime was not lost on anyone involved in the production. Fact 6. The cinematographer was a famous director's son. Nicholas Joseph von Sternberg was only 21 years old and fresh out of UCLA Film School when he became the director of photography for Dolemite, making it his very first professional motion picture credit. What makes this even more remarkable is that Nicholas was the son of Joseph von Sternberg, one of the most celebrated and influential directors in Hollywood history, who had been nominated for Academy Awards and created iconic films like Morocco and Shanghai Express with legendary actress Marlene Dietrich during the 1930s. The elder von Sternberg had also taught film classes at UCLA, where his students included Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek, who would go on to form The Doors and credited his teaching as a major influence on their music. Nicholas was initially hired as the production manager for $250 a week, but when he arrived on set and realized he was one of the only people involved who had any formal film training whatsoever, he quickly promoted himself to cinematographer because he didn't trust anyone else to shoot the movie properly. He created a script breakdown board and helped establish the tight $70,000 budget that the production would follow. Despite coming from Hollywood royalty and having access to his father's knowledge about sophisticated filmmaking techniques, Nicholas found himself working on a chaotic, ultra-low-budget production where there wasn't even craft service for the cast and crew, with Rudy Ray Moore cooking spaghetti for everyone instead. Nicholas would go on to have a successful career as a director of photography, shooting films like Tourist Trap in Texasville, as well as various television series, but Dolemite remained a unique and formative experience in his long career. Fact 7. The cameraman had to be covered with blankets. While Nicholas von Sternberg was behind the camera trying to maintain professional standards on the Dolemite set, he faced an unexpected challenge that had nothing to do with technical filmmaking skills. The amateur performances, outrageous dialogue, and absurd situations happening in front of his lens were so genuinely funny that von Sternberg frequently could not control his laughter during actual takes. This created a serious problem because his laughing would ruin the audio being recorded for scenes, and with such a tight budget, the production couldn't afford to waste film stock or time redoing shots unnecessarily. The crew came up with a creative solution to handle von Sternberg's uncontrollable giggling fits by occasionally covering him with heavy sound blankets, which are thick padded covers normally used to dampen noise on film sets. These blankets would muffle his laughter enough that the microphones wouldn't pick it up while the cameras were rolling, allowing scenes to continue without interruption. Von Sternberg himself had never worked on anything remotely like Dolemite before, having come from the formal training environment of UCLA's film program where students learned classical cinema techniques. Watching Rudy Ray Moore deliver his wild, profanity-filled rhymes and seeing the chaotic action sequences with their unconvincing martial arts choreography was apparently too much for the young cinematographer to handle with a straight face. The fact that the son of one of Hollywood's most sophisticated and artistic directors found himself literally hiding under blankets to stifle his laughter while filming a blaxploitation movie about a kung fu fighting pimp perfectly captures the bizarre, anything-goes atmosphere that defined the entire Dolemite production from start to finish. Fact 8. The infamous boom mic was an accident. For decades, Dolemite has been famous for having the boom microphone constantly visible at the top of the frame in scene after scene, becoming one of the film's most mocked aspects and a running joke among fans who would play drinking games counting boom mic appearances. However, what most people don't realize is that audiences who saw Dolemite in theaters during its original 1975 release actually didn't see these boom mics at all. The film was shot and intended to be projected at an aspect ratio of 1.85:1, which is the standard widescreen format that would crop out the top and bottom portions of the film frame. When projected correctly in theaters with this matting, the boom microphone hovering above actors' heads was hidden in the area that wasn't supposed to be visible to audiences. The problem began when Dolemite was transferred to VHS and later DVD formats starting in the early 1990s using what's called an open matte transfer, which showed the full frame of the film negative without the proper theatrical cropping. This mistake revealed everything that was happening at the top and bottom of the frame, including all the production equipment that Nicholas von Sternberg and his crew had positioned there, never imagining it would be seen by viewers. The tight, low ceilings in the Dunbar Hotel made it difficult to position the boom mic properly, so the sound crew placed it just above the actors in the space they thought would be cropped out. It wasn't until 2016 when Vinegar Syndrome released a Blu-ray edition that fans finally got to see Dolemite in its correct 1.8 5:1 aspect ratio, with most of the boom mics properly hidden for the first time on home video. Fact 9. The boom operator is visible too. The boom microphone situation in Dolemite gets even more absurd when you realize that it's not just the equipment that became visible in the improper home video transfers, but also the actual person holding that equipment. In several scenes throughout the film, viewers watching the open-matte versions on VHS and DVD could see not only the boom mic dangling into the shot, but also the boom operator's hand gripping the pole, and in some cases, even the top of the operator's head as they struggled to position the microphone close enough to capture the actor's dialogue. One reviewer joked that the boom mic appeared on screen more than some of the supporting cast members, and another noted that you could see so much of the boom operator that you could probably describe them to a sketch artist if needed. There's even a scene where a sound effects person becomes visible on screen actually clapping their hands to create sound effects during a fight sequence, adding another layer of technical crew members accidentally appearing in the final film. This happened because everyone working on Dolemite was either a complete amateur or operating under the assumption that the theatrical matting would hide everything happening in the upper portion of the frame, so the sound crew didn't bother being careful about keeping themselves and their equipment out of what they thought was the safe zone. The Cinema Snob, a popular internet film reviewer, memorably commented that the boom mic has gotten so far into the movie that you can describe the boom operator to authorities, highlighting just how prominent and unmissable these intrusions became. These visible crew members have become such an iconic part of the Dolemite viewing experience that they've been lovingly parodied in films like Black Dynamite, which deliberately included similar production mistakes as a tribute. Fact 10. Chuck Norris got a thank you credit. When the end credits roll on Dolemite, viewers are treated to a special thanks section that reads like a fascinating snapshot of 1970s Los Angeles establishments and businesses that helped make the film possible. Among the thanked organizations is Chuck Norris Karate School, which appears alongside other colorful Los Angeles locations, including the New Total Experience, Mr. Fatburger, Wilson Hill and Rachel Mortuary, the Geisha House of Beautiful Women, and Bill Cowser and his dancers. The Chuck Norris acknowledgement is particularly interesting because at the time Dolemite was being made in 1974 and 1975, Chuck Norris was transitioning from being a championship martial artist into an actor and had opened a chain of karate schools across Los Angeles where he taught celebrity clients. The school apparently provided either training for the actresses who played Dolemite's kung fu fighting prostitutes, or allowed the production to use their facilities for filming the martial arts sequences, though the exact nature of their contribution isn't fully documented. Inside one of the karate school scenes in the film, you can actually see a whiteboard hanging on the rear wall that specifies the Chuck Norris Karate School's rules and regulations, confirming that they shot at least some footage at an actual Chuck Norris location. The eclectic mix of businesses thanked in the credits really captures the grassroots, community-supported nature of the production, where Rudy Ray Moore relied on local establishments and personal connections rather than major studio resources. These credits also provide a glimpse into the Central Avenue community and the various businesses that existed in Black Los Angeles during that era. Fact 11. They cast strippers from local clubs. When it came time to assemble the cast for Dolemite, Rudy Ray Moore took an unconventional approach to finding the women who would play his army of kung fu fighting prostitutes. Rather than holding traditional auditions with professional actresses or going through talent agencies, Moore and his collaborator Ben Taylor went directly to strip clubs around Los Angeles to recruit performers. Moore was looking for women who had stage presence, weren't afraid of the camera, and could handle the film's adult-oriented content without hesitation, and he figured that exotic dancers would fit those requirements perfectly. The casting approach made practical sense for several reasons beyond just finding women comfortable with sexuality on screen. Moore had very limited funds to pay his cast, and professional actresses with agents and union requirements would have been far too expensive for his shoestring budget. Additionally, many of the women working in strip clubs were already part of the same entertainment circuit, where Moore performed his comedy routines. So there was an existing relationship and trust within that community. These dancers also had experience performing in front of audiences and projecting confidence, which translated reasonably well to being in front of a movie camera, even if they had never acted before. The result was a cast that, while not technically trained in acting, brought genuine energy and fearlessness to their roles as Dolemite's loyal crew of fighters. This guerrilla-style casting perfectly exemplified Moore's entire do-it-yourself philosophy for making Dolemite, where he pulled together whatever resources and people he could find within his own community, rather than trying to work within Hollywood's established systems and hierarchies. Fact 12. The film was shot stop and start for over a year. Unlike typical movie productions that shoot continuously over a period of weeks or months, Dolemite had one of the most chaotic and drawn-out filming schedules imaginable. Production officially began in January of 1974, but the movie wouldn't be completed and ready for release until April of 1975, meaning the actual filming process stretched across more than a year. This wasn't because Dolemite required complex special effects or elaborate set pieces that took time to construct, but rather because Rudy Ray Moore was financing the entire production out of his own pocket and simply ran out of money repeatedly throughout the shoot. Whenever Moore exhausted his current funds, production would completely shut down while he went back on the road to perform his comedy shows, sell more albums from his car trunk, and scrape together enough cash to resume filming for another few days or weeks. The cast and crew would essentially be dismissed, not knowing when or if they would be called back to finish the movie, and then Moore would contact everyone again once he had raised more money to continue. This stop-and-start approach created enormous challenges for maintaining continuity in the film, as actors' appearances could change between shooting sessions, and keeping track of which scenes still needed to be filmed became increasingly difficult. The intermittent production schedule also meant that some cast members might not be available when filming resumed, forcing last-minute adjustments to the script or shooting schedule. Despite these massive logistical nightmares, Moore's determination to finish the film, no matter how long it took, ultimately paid off, proving that persistence and resourcefulness could overcome even the most difficult financial obstacles in independent filmmaking. Fact 13. The title was originally spelled wrong. Even getting the film's title correct proved to be a challenge during Dolemite's path to release. When the movie was first being announced and promoted in the Hollywood trade publications during March of 1975, both Daily Variety and The Hollywood Reporter consistently spelled the title as Dolemite with an O in the middle, rather than the correct spelling of Dolemite with an E. This misspelling appeared in multiple news items about the film throughout March, including announcements about director D'Urville Martin completing negotiations with the theatrical distributor Dimension Pictures. The confusion is somewhat understandable because Dolemite with an O is actually a real word referring to a type of sedimentary rock and mineral, so trade publication writers and editors probably assumed that was the correct spelling without checking with the filmmakers. By April of 1975, the spelling had been corrected to Dolemite in publications like Box Office Magazine, and that's how it appeared in all promotional materials and on screen when the film was released. The misspelling incident highlights just how outside the mainstream Hollywood system Rudy Ray Moore and his production were operating, as a major studio release would have had publicists and marketing teams ensuring that even basic details like the title spelling were communicated correctly to trade publications from the very beginning. This small but embarrassing error was just one more example of the amateur, seat-of-the-pants nature of the entire Dolemite production, where even seemingly simple things, like making sure entertainment industry reporters knew how to spell your movie's title, could slip through the cracks when you're functioning as a true independent without studio infrastructure supporting you. Fact 14. It made back 100 times its budget. After all the struggles, financial gambles, and chaotic production challenges, Dolemite proved that Rudy Ray Moore's belief in his vision was completely justified when the film became a massive financial success. The movie was made for somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 depending on which sources you consult, with Moore financing nearly the entire budget himself through his comedy album earnings. When Dolemite was released in April of 1975 and began playing in theaters across the country, it immediately connected with audiences in a way that nobody in Hollywood had predicted. During its opening week alone, the film earned $26,765 in Atlanta, an impressive $67,033 in Chicago, $23,072 in New Orleans, and $21,649 in Houston, showing strong performance in major urban markets. By October of 1975, just 6 months after release, the Los Angeles Sentinel reported that Dolemite had already grossed over $3 million, and by the time its theatrical run concluded, various sources estimate the total box office reached somewhere between $10 and $12 million. This meant that Moore's risky investment had paid off by a factor of 100 times or more, turning what could have been a financial disaster into one of the most profitable independent films of the 1970s. The success vindicated Moore's determination to make the film his way, despite every Hollywood executive telling him it wouldn't work, and it proved there was a hungry audience for black-centered entertainment that the major studios were ignoring. Fact 15. The Blu-ray includes a boom mic edition. When the specialty home video company Vinegar Syndrome announced they were releasing a restored Blu-ray edition of Dolemite in 2016, they faced an interesting dilemma about how to handle the film's most infamous technical flaw. The company had done meticulous restoration work using a 2K scan from a recently discovered 35mm negative and were presenting the film in its proper theatrical aspect ratio of 1.85:1 for the very first time on home video, which meant that most of the notorious boom microphones would finally be hidden as originally intended. However, Vinegar Syndrome recognized that generations of fans had grown to love Dolemite specifically because of those visible boom mics, which had become an inseparable part of the viewing experience and contributed significantly to the film's charm as a cult classic. The company made the clever decision to include both versions on the Blu-ray release, giving viewers the option to watch either the corrected widescreen presentation or what they lovingly labeled the boom mic version, which preserved the full-frame open matte transfer that showed all the production mistakes. This alternate version was presented as a special bonus feature, acknowledging that while it wasn't technically correct, it represented how most people had experienced and fallen in love with Dolemite over the previous few decades on VHS and DVD. The boom mic edition even became a selling point in the marketing for the release, with the packaging specifically advertising that fans could choose their preferred viewing experience. This decision perfectly captured Vinegar Syndrome's understanding that sometimes technical flaws become beloved features and that film preservation isn't just about restoring original intent, but also honoring how audiences have actually connected with movies over time. Movies over time. Movies over time. Movies over time.